Hi friend, thank you so much for watching. I just wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about the 7-day Daniel fast that I just recently did. And I don't know if you've ever done a fast before, but I've only done a couple, and the times that I've done it, I've really gained a lot. And then I think once I didn't really follow my fast, so don't really think I gained that much from that one. But overall, I've just grown to really enjoy doing fast and understanding that when we do those, we can learn so much from them. So I kind of just wanted to talk to you about why I did a fast and why you might want to do a fast, because I feel like people maybe closer to my age, and um, we don't really want to do fast, or we don't really understand the point, or when you think about doing a fast, it doesn't necessarily sound that enticing. So I just kind of want to talk about it, and maybe if you felt like it, you could try a fast and see how it goes for you. So to start out, the kind of fast that I did was called a Daniel fast, and it lasted 7 days. And if you've never done a Daniel fast or heard of what that is, it comes from the book of Daniel, and you can read about it in First Daniel, and I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about that. But you can also look it up online. I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of what it is, but it's basically vegetables and water and fruit and things like that. But you can look it up, and I looked up a couple of things. I think Dr. Axe, if you look him up on Google or something, he has a lot of different reasons why you should try fast and the kind of foods you want to eat or you don't want to eat on a Daniel fast. So you might check him out. I really liked the way he had everything set up and how he explained everything, so you might enjoy that too. But basically, I just wanted to start out with talking about the Daniel fast. So in the book of Daniel, basically, I'll just kind of give you the rundown. There's a king, and he calls for several youth to come to the palace and to basically be trained up and with education and all different kinds of things. And after 3 years, basically have to come in front of the king and be tested. Well, Daniel was one of the youth that was chosen, and he and his men decide that they don't necessarily want to partake in the different food that the king was offering the kids that he brought into the kingdom, or brought into his kingdom. So by that, like, he was going to give them all the best food, the king's food, wine, everything he thought would make these guys a lot better. But Daniel felt called to only eat, and it says in Daniel 1:12, he says, test your servants for 10 days. So he asked to be tested after 10 days because there was kind of some dispute about whether or not they should do this type of fast, or eat differently than the other guys that were going to eat the king's food. So he said, test your servants after 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. So that's kind of the basis of the Daniel fast. And he felt called by God to do that. And after those 10 days, he was tested in front of the king. And it says that God gave them, in verse 17, it says, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. And then skipping over to verse 20, after they've been tested, it says, in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than basically everyone else. The magicians, the enchanters, they were in all his kingdom. So basically, God showed up and proved that when Daniel and his men were faithful and did as he was asked, or that they were asked, then God showed up and made him more wise than all these people that chose to just do what the king asked. So, bringing that back, now you know the Daniel story and all that if you didn't already know that. But going back to what I was going to talk about, right after reading this, when I decided to do a Daniel fast, I got 2 important lessons from that. And the first one was, I'm just going to read this part to you. When we feel God called us to something, we should be obedient and following through, whether that's a fast or a major life decision. Either way, if he called us to it, we should follow through. It will ultimately strengthen us and will strengthen our relationship with him. So that was the first lesson that I gained. The second was, when we make the decision to follow through, we should trust that God will be faithful. Sometimes I struggle a lot with trusting that if I do something that I feel God called me to do, will he really be there? Or did he really call me to do that? So I question it. But at the end of the day, if I try it, if I do what I think God asked me to do, and I'm faithful in that, he's always faithful in return. Or he shows me that that's not what he wanted in the first place. But he's always faithful. And so that's what I see here, is that Daniel trusted that that's what God asked of him, even though when people questioned and were not necessarily okay with him making that choice, he trusted God enough to say, no, if he told me to this, he's going to show up and he's going to be faithful in the end. And of course, God was, as he always is. So then moving on to, why did I decide to do this fast? So after I read that and I kind of looked into it, I decided, let me go back up. So when I was a small group leader back when I was in grad school, I was under a pastor that was the head of the college ministry at the time, named David McKinney. He was had a huge impact on my life and my spiritual life. Him and his wife were huge mentors to me. And our church at the time was going through a whole fast. The whole church was going to do it. You weren't required, but they were wanting everyone to do it. It was a 21-day fast. And David, however, required all of the small group leaders to do it, which I'm so glad that he did, because I probably would never have really tried a fast unless I was in a leadership position that they asked me to do it. And I can tell you that 21 days for your first fast, that's pretty intense, because, your first fast, you kind of decide, like, I'm going all out. Like, I'm going to not to eat this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not, that's how I was. I was like, basically, I could eat, like, water and maybe, I don't know, a vegetable here and there. No, not really. I had lots of different things I could eat. But I just went hardcore with it. And after I completed the 21 days, I was super good. One of my good friends did it with me. And she was a small group leader with me, and we both did it, and it was super hard at times. But we both gained so much from it. And I can tell you that when I finished that fast, I felt like my relationship with God grew so much. And I personally grew as a person in so many ways, and I matured a lot. And actually during that time, that's when Craig and I started dating. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen if you're like wanting to find your person and you fast. Like, I'm not saying God's going to bring you that person. It just happened that way. So all of that, but to say that my very first fast I ever did impacted my life so greatly and my spiritual walk, and I think has a huge impact on who I am today. And so I was all for some fasts after that. But I took a break from it. I didn't really do it for a while. And then 2 years later, I tried the Daniel fast and did 7 days and did not do so well. It was around Christmas time, so I ended up eating a lot of cookies and just didn't do well. And of course, it's not like God was like super angry at me and like this bad stuff happened. It wasn't like that. I just didn't get what I had gotten the first time. And I really think that's because I wasn't necessarily faithful in what I set out to do for God, right? So then the last fast I did was this one, and I just completed it. It was 7 days, and I told myself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it all I've got and just, see what I can gain. And so I'm excited to kind of tell you about that. But before I do, I just kind of also wanted to talk to you about why you might want to fast. Like why I fast, but why you might want to fast. So there's lots of different reasons why you should fast. And, scholarly pastors are going to tell you tons of great reasons. But mine, is a little bit more simple. And I think there's tons of reasons. I'm not saying mine's the only reason you should fast. I just think this is what I think every time that I decide to do a fast. So my main thing is, every time that I decide to fast, I realize how much it requires me to be in constant conversation with God, right? So I like to fast because I like to grow. I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to better myself. I'm always wanting to be the best person that God wants me to be. I don't always succeed, which is why I need to fast. And I'm never going to be the best version of myself. But I like to do it because I see so much I see so much growth within myself. And the reason why is because, so say you decide to do a Daniel fast and you can't eat meat, which I just got to tell y'all, like, I am a protein girl. So like if you can take away most sweets, you could take away most fruit. Actually, you could take away fruits. I really wouldn't care. I'd probably be okay without that much bread or carbs or anything, but take away my protein and I'm like about to go crazy, right? So Whenever I open the refrigerator, when I'm on a fast, like you already know, so these are the things I cannot eat. These are the things I'm gonna say I'm not gonna do. Whenever I do a fast and I open my refrigerator and I look at that like turkey right there, man, I really want a turkey sandwich so bad. I'm going to go reach for it, and then all of a sudden I stop and say, wait, why can't I eat that? Oh yeah, and it reminds me that I'm doing a fast, and because I'm reminded that I'm doing a fast, then I'm reminded, why am I doing that fast? Oh, because I need to spend more time with God and kind of rebuild our relationship, or I need more wisdom, or I'm trying to make a major decision in my life and I want God's wisdom in that. And so it brings me back to that remembering to talk to God. And so then, if I'm completely honest with you, I'm probably going to sit there and stare at that turkey and have that mental debate in my head with God, like, God, can I have that turkey? Can I have it? Like, are you going to not like me anymore if I eat that turkey? Because I still love you. You know I love you. I just really want that turkey. But then every time I say, okay, I won't eat the turkey. And I close the door, and I might have a little moment where I'm a little frustrated, but then at the end of it, I think, wow, that actually felt really good to say, I really wanted something, but God, I want you more. Like, I want what you want more. And in that moment, it forced me to go into conversation with God. And inevitably, then I'm going to want to continue to talk to God. And from there, then I'm going to read the word more. And it's all kind of a constant snowball where, of course, because you're reminded constantly of why you're not partaking in these things, then you're going to be involved with God more. You're going to be talking to God more. It's just going to happen because you're constantly reminded. And that's one of those things that on a daily basis we forget about. We forget to be in constant conversation with God because we're doing 1,000,001 things every single day. We're not just focused on God. We got to take care of our families. We got to do work. We got to do, whatever it is, you're busy. And so fasts kind of make you take a moment, and those moments that you might not normally talk to God, it takes you back to Him. And inevitably, because you're spending so much more time with Him, because you're making active effort to be in the Word more or to just talk to Him more, you're going to grow. You're going to have more realizations. You're going to allow Him in more so that He can better you. He can show you what He's been wanting to talk to you about. And so I always find that I tend to want to do fast when I've kind of lost sight of that, when I've walked away for a little bit or started thinking I could do things on my own versus spending time with Him. So all that to say, you might want to try a fast. You might see how it is for you. And the main thing I would say as a reminder on that, when you're fasting, it's not just about not eating the turkey or whatever fast you decide to do. It's not just about that. It's also about being in constant prayer with God or taking extra time to spend with Him. It's also really important, and at least for me, I found, and I really think anybody would agree who does fast, it's so important to be reading your Bible because God can tell you a lot of things, and He'll reveal a lot of things to you. But it's inevitable that if you read the Bible with it, you're going to just see so many more things, and it's going to be so much deeper, and you'll have so many more realizations, and you'll grow so much more if you'll add that in with it. The talking and the praying is vital, but also the word with it is just going to make it so much more, right? So after saying all that, I just kind of wanted to be vulnerable with you and kind of share with you what I got this time. Why I told you why I fasted, why you might want to try to fast. But I debated whether or not I would tell, what did I learn? But I think that's important. I think it's important to share with others your vulnerabilities, and maybe something that I learned might help you. So the first thing that I learned was I need a lot of growth in self-discipline. I am, and not just in not what I need to eat, but just in everyday life. I can say I'm going to do something and I don't necessarily always follow through, or I might say, okay, God, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. and I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you in your word and prayer, and then I didn't get to sleep until 12:30, and my alarm goes off at 6:20, and I look at my quiet timetable and I'm like, that looks cold, and my bed's warm, and I could really actually sleep for 30 more minutes, and then before I realize it, my other alarm's going off, and I've already fallen back to sleep. So that's one area, but also just in all aspects of wanting to remain faithful to God in all areas of life. I really need to grow my self discipline in that. And I also put here that I think there's a time, I talked about grace the other day. I do think there's a time for grace. There's a constant time for grace. Grace is all the time. God's grace for you is there all the time. But, I do think there's a time to say, okay, God, thank you for your grace. And now it's time for me to step up. For me at least. I'm not saying you have to be that way, but for me, I feel like there's a point that I can say, thank you, God. I appreciate this. But now it's time for me to also stand up and do the work you've asked of me. Not to stay in the same place, but to move forward. And if I fall, then I fall. But then I get back up and I continue to walk. You fall, you receive grace, you continue to work. Fall, receive grace, continue to grow. It's a constant movement. It shouldn't just be like I always fail, I'll sit in grace. That's just that rebuilding time, time to find your confidence again and then move forward. Secondly, I struggle with confidence in my calling and really in my abilities, thinking that I can really do things. And God really told me this time, Helen, really it's not about you. It's not about what you can or cannot do. If I have actually called you to it, and if I didn't, I'll let you know. But if I called you to it, it's not about whether you can do it. It's whether or not you know that I can do it. And that was a big step for me to say, I'm sitting here like so nervous thinking I can't do all these things God asked me to do because I was not bringing him into the conversation. I wasn't making him the forefront saying, if you've asked me to do it, then I know you're going to be my closer. You're going to be the person that finishes out. So that was my second thing. And then third, I was saying yes to too many things. I don't know if any of y'all have read Lisa TerKeurst's book about like the best yes, but really, I'm really bad at saying no. Like I think like I'm being unloving if I say no. One of my best friends from my old job, Melanie, somebody would come into the office and ask me to do something, and Melanie would be like, no, she can't do that, because I literally could not say no for myself. And, that's sweet and all, but at the end of the day, what that's really doing is, in a way, putting all these other things in front of what God's asked me to do. I'm piling so much on that I'm forgetting what I'm called to do. And so there's a point that I also need to say, okay, God, I need to cut some things. I need to go back to the basics. I need to come back to you and just say, what do you need me to do? Not what everyone else needs me to do, but what do you need me to do? And so that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm kind of learning how to cut things and say, where's my focus? What am I asked to do? What does God need me to do? And I think that's going to be a process, as anything is. All these things are going to be a process. But what's amazing about going through a fast is that I never knew that that's what I was going to get out. Like I never know going to a fast the wisdom I'll get coming out. But I always do, and it's always a blessing. So I was going to go ahead and close here, and I hope that you got something from that. I hope that you may just try it. There's nothing to lose. And like this shirt that I got, it's a Written tee. I absolutely love all their shirts. But if you want to check them out, that's at Shop Written. You can check them on Instagram. They're online. They're awesome. But you have to be fearless on things like this. You can't just not do it because you don't know if it's going to work. At the end of the day, it's either going to not change anything or it's going to make it better. It's not going to make you worse. So why not try it out and just see how it may strengthen your relationship with God. We just have to sometimes believe that if we take the step, God's going to show up just like Daniel did, right? So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night, whatever time you're watching this, and know that I'm so thankful for you and whatever you're doing and wherever you're at. I hope that this can encourage you. I hope that God blesses you in some little way today to know that He's there for you. So I love you, friends. Talk to you soon.